It's Ryan Dunn's birthday. You know what that means. High fives all around. Hey there, welcome into the PHNX Suns pregame show to take on the Hornets tonight. Of course, this show brought to you by Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You do you. At Gila River Resorts and Casinos, visit playatgila.com for more details. I see all of you in the chat. Panda, Mark, King3, J-Rock, Book, Sunwalker, Lorenzo, all of you. We appreciate y'all. I'm Eric. That's Steven. That's Gerald. It's Suns. It's Hornets. Noah's behind the Mac, making all the magic happen. And we are going to break down the game. We're going to give you the injury report, the line, what we think the Suns need to do to win. Bradley Beal off the bench, but we would be remiss if we did not bring up the fact, Gerald, that this Jimmy Butler stuff is getting crazy.
Yeah, it's, when we first started talking about Jimmy Butler to the Suns, it felt very, very unlikely. And I will still say there's a lot of hoops that need to be jumped through in order for something like this to come to fruition. But so far, the stars are kind of aligning on, Butler wanting to come to Phoenix. The Suns reportedly being interested in Butler coming to Phoenix and being one of the most aggressive teams in pursuing him. And all of the groundwork that needs to be laid in order for that to happen is starting to fall into place. Now, there's still a lot that has to continue to happen for that to come to fruition. But all of the reporting today felt fairly positive if you're the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, let's take a look at just the kind of the amalgamation. I love that word. I use it all the time. Of all the different tweets and reporting that's gone out there about for him. Of course, Brian Windhorst saying the only team that's willing to pay Jimmy Butler is the Phoenix Suns. Chris Mannix saying that Phoenix is Jimmy Butler's #1 destination. More often than not, with everything that Gerald said, where it does seem like there are a lot of hoops to jump through to get there, when a player does something like this in this modern NBA, you usually see them get what they want.
Yeah, this is like an ultimate leverage play. You know that there's ambiguity with the future as far as the contract goes. And because of that, teams aren't going to want to give up assets. And if there's only one team that has something that can make sense contractually, even if it involves the complexities of a multi-team trade past just two, it pigeonholes the team that the player's on to only focusing on what the direct point A to point B avenue is. There's really no C's and D's you can throw in there because he said he only wants to go one place. That one place happens to be the only place that has something math-wise that can make it work. And you might try to wait it out, but that's at your own detriment at that point.
What do you think is more likely, Gerald? Jimmy Butler's a Phoenix Sun at the end of this season, or Jimmy Butler's a Miami Heat at the end of this season?
I honestly have no idea at this point, and I'm not trying to cop out, but I do think there are a lot of things that have to be taken into account here. Like, the Heat don't have to trade Jimmy Butler. They are taking a substantial risk if they choose to wait until the summer, because a toxic situation like that can fester. If he hasn't been traded by the time he gets back from his suspension, the reporting is that the Heat expect him to rejoin the team. And Butler had said initially that he'll be professional. He'll conduct himself like a professional as they try to facilitate his trade request. That goes very contradictory to what he has been doing on the court, what he's been doing in that press conference that he gave. So it's hard to see, okay, if you're the Heat and you need to make the playoffs to keep your 2026 first round pick and your 2028 first round pick, like, can you let a situation like that fester? Can you wait until the summer when there will be more flexibility, more options for sign and trades, that sort of thing? Or do you need to deal him before February 6th? Because right now, Brian Windhorst is reporting that teams are not giving their best offer for Jimmy Butler because he's basically telling them, I'm not going to re-sign with you when I'm a free agent this summer. I'm going to be a rental if you trade for me. nobody's going to give up assets for Jimmy Butler. And that's one way to kind of streamline your way to, well, the Suns are trying. At this point, it feels like if the Suns can find a way to loop in a third team, because the Heat don't want Bradley Beal, they can find a way to find a third team that will give Miami some of what it wants, and a team where Beal will be willing to waive his no trade clause, they're in the driver's seat. The problem is finding that third team is really, really tricky.
Yeah, we've seen tricky situations, Steven. Sometimes they can work out, and maybe Jimmy Butler doesn't end up on the Phoenix Suns by this trade deadline. But maybe come the offseason, if the Phoenix Suns just trot out the same old team, maybe make one small trade, it doesn't do a lot. You know Jimmy wants to be in Phoenix. You might get to a point this offseason where you're staring a Kevin Durant extension down, and he's saying, I need a different situation to want to stay here. This could all just be like the precursor, right, to what could be the main act in the summer, which is Jimmy does eventually get here.
Well, my rebuttal to that is, would it be too late for
It
the
might,
Suns?
it might be.
Because the way they're trending right now, record-wise, if we extrapolate the amount of games they played now and multiply it times 1.5 or 2 throughout the duration of the regular season, they're not finishing in the playoffs right now.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're in the play-in and you play the inherent risk that comes with that, it's a one-off, and someone's cold or, God forbid, somebody's hurt on top of that.
Yeah. I mean, again, you are playing the ticking game, like ticking clock game, where the ticky tock, you guys know what that is.
Tiki Tembo.
Come on, you all know what the ticky tock is, huh? Where Bradley Beal is liable to get injured at any moment. Jimmy Butler is liable to get injured at any moment. Other players you might be trading for, other teams might have in mind, might end up being injured, and that could affect somebody else being all in or not on trading for Jimmy Butler and being willing to give up assets. Like, this is the big game of chicken that's being played in the NBA, but the Suns do have some of their own problems, a lot of their own problems they still have to face right now. We'll continue to talk about Jimmy Butler post-game. We have some pretty interesting stuff that we'll go through. Gerald has some awesome stuff in the works that's going to be going up on gophnx.com about Jimmy Butler, how we could end up here. We will touch on that more in post-game, but we do have a basketball game tonight. Brian in the chat, thanks for joining us, Brian. We appreciate you. Says, I want to see how Beal off the bench works out a few weeks first. Well, Gerald, it worked out pretty well last night. Do you feel like it can work out well again tonight?
You hope so if you're the Suns, because you're in this situation now where you got to hope that last night was not just a one game reaction to like an FU performance.
Like, I'll show you.
Right, exactly. Right. That has to be something that you sustain moving forward, especially against a Hornets team that's lost 10 straight games. Like, it would be really disappointing if the Suns came out and laid an egg tonight. Beating the Hornets is not going to, they could shoot 100% tonight, win by 40. And I still wouldn't be convinced that this team has fixed itself, but you cannot take a step back tonight either by that same token. You have to continue to build on this because you have the most favorable stretch of schedule that you're going to see all season coming up right now. And it's at the worst time of the year when you have been searching for something. You had to change up your starting lineup to make any kind of change. You've got to build on this now, and you've got to continue to tap into Bradley Beal, as he is one of your best players still coming off the bench, and find the lineups that work, find the lineups that don't work. And you could kind of see it last night, all the different lineups that were thrown out there. You can see Bud is trying to evaluate, okay, what is going to work with this new configuration and what's not going to work.
Yeah, you don't make that change for a one game against an injured Philadelphia 76ers team.
Well, it's a decision, right? The decision gets made.
And that's to that point, you can't do what you did last night and then come out the next night against a lesser team, even though they might be whole or a lot more whole than Philly was, and not execute. This is the pocket of this is a gift, honestly, from the basketball gods.
Right.
For the Suns for their season to have gone the way that it's gone so far, and you hit this lull and you have these opportunities, and that's what they are. There's nothing guaranteed with this team, but they're opportunities against teams that you can say that you should win against. You have to take full advantage of it.
Exodus 1512 or 15:2 in the chat, says, man, not sure why all the hype over the win last night. I honestly thought they looked kind of trash against a hurt Sixers team. There were definitely certain elements that they did not look great in. If you want to point the finger at Devin Booker and shooting 3 for 16, you can point at that. I think at certain points when on the defensive end, Philly was kind of getting whatever they wanted. Kelly Oubre, Tyrese Maxey were going off, right? Some of that was just, good shot making. Some of that was defensive effort as well. You didn't see a full, complete effort from the Suns, but the big thing that everybody was watching was Bradley Beal off the bench and what he did. And he ends up leading the team in scoring, being the most efficient player on all three levels, even to the free throw line as well. And that's why you walk away from that feeling almost a little good about it. Not great. I don't think anybody thinks the season's actually saved, but you're like, okay, the big change, it technically worked. You got to win, which was a box that you haven't checked in a little bit. And you saw a big change and a positive response. I think that's where the positivity comes from. But in order to beat a Charlotte team that's going to be better than the Sixers were last night, and then to continue to play, Gerald, you said a pretty easy schedule coming up, they need to play more whole still to actually string together multiple wins in a row.
They do. And you could look at last night and say, if Booker just has a normal shooting night, the numbers are a little bit different. But it was kind of funny that you look at their new starting lineup, and it was their worst lineup in terms of they were -6, team worst in 11 minutes. And most of that was the first half. They were -11 in the first half, +5 in the second half. So hopefully they figured some things out, because that lineup had only played like 14 minutes together all season heading into the night. But it was kind of funny that, you look at the different lineups that they use. I think they use like 19 different ones. And a lot of the most successful ones were 3-guard lineups, the exact lineups that you're trying to get away from with Beal coming off the bench. The problem is a lot of the guys off the bench are guards. It's just part of your roster composition. You're not going to be able to get away from these 3-guard lineups. And the ones with, 2 forwards out there didn't do as well. So again, it's a 1-game sample size. I'm not reading into any of this in any real capacity. But it is something to keep an eye on, because those lineups are going to have to prove that, like, especially starting lineup, this new one, that it's going to benefit the Suns aside from just Beal going off the bench.
Right. It needs to be mutually beneficial for what you get out of Beal and what you get out of the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I want to ask you about, Steven, because I know obviously you're a massive basketball fan. You keep track with the entire NBA. The Suns were not the only one last night that tried out a new starting lineup. The Minnesota Timberwolves put Dante DiVincenzo in the starting lineup, and you saw at the beginning of that game, they did not look good, and they fell down early, and over the game, they figured that out. It's not easy to make drastic changes like that and to just pick up where things left off.
It's not. It's a little different for the Timberwolves context, because that lineup spent more minutes and more time and more possessions than the Suns version of it did. And obviously that team is in a complete different stratosphere in terms of the space that they're operating in and the urgency that they're working with as far as where they are in respect to where they desire to be at this point in the season. But yes, there's a unlearning and a relearning, because this lineup that might have been used as a secondary or tertiary lineup is not a primary lineup that you're looking to set a tone for a game with and or potentially close the game with. So there's a different level of leaning into a responsibility that comes with when that lineup is being featured as like your main dish versus like a secondary piece for you.
Yeah, it's different, Gerald, to start a basketball game on the floor and start it on the bench. You're still playing the same sport, but for both Beal and Nurkic, who are changing their roles, and then for Plumlee and Dunn, who are getting that start, like, it's a different way to approach the game.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And like we've said, they needed to change something up. I'd never thought it would be Beal coming off the bench over Tyus Jones, and I think there's still something to explore there. You look at Tyus, he didn't play. I don't even know if he played at all in the fourth quarter.
I think Monte Morris played more minutes than him last night.
So again, something to keep an eye on. I think you can get away with some of the guard-heavy lineups against a team like Philly that's shorthanded, that was smaller last night. Against bigger opponents, that might be more of a struggle. But I did think it was interesting that, Beal shared the court with Booker and KD for 13 of his 30 minutes, and he was in a 3-guard lineup for 26 of his 30 minutes last night. So if the whole goal was to bring him off the bench to add some size and stuff, you're still going to have to deal with this inherent problem moving forward.
Yep. And that inherent problem continues tonight. Can they get over it with the Charlotte Hornets? Rodriguez says Tyus will have a good game today. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets and the Phoenix Suns as they square off on this Tuesday night. Let's start with the injury report for the Phoenix Suns and for the Charlotte Hornets. Royce O'Neal continues to be out with a left ankle sprain. He is the only one on the Suns injury report. Seth Curry is probable with right knee soreness. I'm not sure if we have an update on him yet. Trey Mann is out with disc irritation, and Grant Williams is out with a right ACL tear. So, do we have an update on Seth?
Yes, Seth Curry is available to play in this game, and you know who else is available to play, who I'm going to be keeping an eye on tonight?
Nick Richards.
That is right. Tonight is a scouting report game for me.
What are you going to look for out of Nick Richards?
I want to see the athleticism. I want to see the screen setting. I want to see how he does on the boards on both ends, the shot blocking, rim protection, all of the things that you would hope translate if they were to trade for him to a Phoenix team that's a little more established, that has more talent around him. Those are the biggest things that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And this is a Hornets opponent that could give the Suns a little bit of trouble in terms of the way that they play, because they're not a good three-point shooting team. They're 22nd in three-point percentage, but they are third in attempts. They get up about 42 threes a game. So we've seen the Suns give up hot shooting nights to opponents before. And the Hornets are also third in offensive rebounds and third in second chance points. So they are going to attack the offensive glass. And you're hoping that this bigger starting lineup that you're trotting out there is going to do its work on the defensive boards.
I'm really excited to watch Ryan Dunn. Shocker, I'm just going to end it there.
Stop.
To watch,
He was not expecting to hear that.
Period.
Period. to watch Ryan Dunn guard LaMelo Ball.
Okay.
Because LaMelo, with the ball in his hands, is one of the most electric basketball players that I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan Dunn, when he's guarding somebody who has the ball in their hands, is one of the most electric defenders that I've seen. I really, really, really hope that LaMelo does hit some shots so he continues to feel it, and it's just Dunn and LaMelo going at it every possession. Like, that, to me, would be incredible basketball.
I could not disagree more with you. I want to see Ryan Dunn come out and absolutely break his rhythm.
Okay, I want him to break. I want LaMelo to hit a couple shots only because I want LaMelo to keep shooting.
Nah, just because if he's shooting and he's making, that means that this game is going to be a lot more interesting than it needs to be from a Suns perspective. That's just for me. I want to see Ryan Dunn double down on everything that he brought to the game against Paul George last night and the moments that he had with Jaren Jackson Jr. Last week, and just showing that diversity of different types of players in which he can go about guarding a post. He can guard in isolation on the wing, or he can guard all the way up to the point guard position and navigate a billion screens because he's one of the most high-volume pick-and-roll players, and he's one of the most effective both as a playmaker and a scorer. So if Ryan Dunn is doing his job to the best of his abilities, that puts everybody else in position to be successful, and that means that LaMelo at least isn't scoring the ball.
Yeah, you also look at Brandon Miller as well on the wing. He can fill it up. Charlotte's going to take a lot of threes. They also give up a lot of threes as well. The Suns need to get back on track. They have been really struggling in the three-point attempts department.
If I speak to that part real quick,
please.
Too, with Brandon Miller, a bucket, first of all, he's never seen a shot that he doesn't like. I'm curious who he's going to spend more time on, he being Ryan Dunn. Because, like, last night, obviously, there were pockets where you feel like he could have been on Tyrese Maxey, but naturally, they also have Paul George. That's no different with the Charlotte Hornets and LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. It's one or the other. I don't think that KD is going to be guarding one of those guys in terms of running around and being in primary actions the whole game. So I'm curious with the starting lineup construct, who Ryan Dunn's going to start the game on and who he ultimately guards more over the course of it.
Knowing Ryan Dunn, he's just going to guard both of them at the same time.
That sounds about right.
I would expect nothing less.
I think it's interesting. Last night against Paul George, Oso played some really good perimeter defense. I wonder if Oso's going to get a quicker nod to get a lot of switching out there, especially for a team that likes to jack up threes. This could be a good Oso game, but they still have some pretty big centers down low.
They do. They have a little bit more size, I think, than the Sixers did last night. So it'll be interesting to see if Oso gets burned like he did last night. He played the most out of the three centers because of how well that he played. And it was kind of funny, the lineup that we talked about last night with the big three and the two rookies. It was technically a -1 in its time on the court together, I think, because the Sixers made that late surge.
Tyrese Maxey.
But that is that was thanks, Tyrese, for making the lineup data look bad. But that is a lineup I would like to see, and I would like to see how it fares against the Hornets team that likes to crash the glass, because that's my biggest concern is the size and the rebounding when Oso is your 5 out there. But yeah, it should be. I'm very interested to see how the center rotation pans out tonight, because if you're playing 3 centers and they're all getting 10 to 18 minutes like last night, who's getting the most, who's getting the least. It was kind of interesting to see that play out last night.
Well, Bud has a lot of buttons to push. Let's see if he pushes them well tonight. Let's look at our predictions as to what's going to be going down. And let's see here. Everybody's taking the Suns, but not by a lot. Steven, you and I are Suns by 4. Espo, Suns by 1. Gerald, your Suns by 3. How confident are we feeling, boys?
Not very. Again, one game against a depleted Sixers team does not change my opinion of what needs to be fixed with this group, or that Beal coming off the bench fixes it. But I think they win just because the Hornets are bad. Like, this is a bad team. They're not on a second night of back-to-back like the Suns, so that's why I think it'll be close. But hopefully they can ride some of yesterday's momentum into this game, and hopefully Booker just plays well. Like, it's been a while since we've had a really good Book game.
I'm still not in a comfortable place with the Suns pick and roll defense in particular. And I just spoke to Lamelo Ball. There's only 19 players that have over 400 pick and roll possessions this season, and his points per possession is 12th, including passes.
Okay.
And if you extrapolate the passes and him just scoring, he's one of the most prolific. And because of that, and because the inconsistency that they've shown defending that, and he's a bigger guard on top of that, if it's not Ryan Dunn that's on him because of a switch that takes place, or if he's just guarding Brandon Miller, that's a tough task to deal with, because he'll bomb it from one foot inside of half court. Like, he takes it past the levels that Steph Curry does in terms of the ambitious shot hunting that he brings. So they got to figure that part out. And I just don't trust that they'll do it for 48 full minutes. They'll probably do it enough to win, which is why I said by 4, but not enough for me to say a double-digit win.
Imagine if they just took control of the whole game and everybody played well.
That'd be nice.
That'd be awesome. Let's see if Bet365 think that's going to happen. Let's take a look at the line. Let's see here. Phoenix, minus 205, minus 405, 4.5 on the spread. They are favored. Charlotte, plus 170, plus 4.5. That about makes sense. We're all around there. Some of us have I think all of us actually have Charlotte covering just under 4.5. But now let's take a look at our pregame picks, of course, that are brought to you by Bet365. Download Bet365 app. Use code PHNX365 when you sign up, and find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 and over and physically located in AZ. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT-STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Before we get into it, let's take a look at the standings. We didn't update all of you after yesterday's game. That's because we all lost. Steven's still in the lead at positive $114.92. I am in the negative at negative $23.50, but I'm not as negative as Espo. In more ways than one, he is at a negative 165. Steven, what are you putting your money on tonight to keep climbing in that green?
I got a few different things in my parlay.
Just a couple.
Surprise.
Let's go.
Got KD for over 29.5 points and assists combined. I think Tyus Jones has a good game, combining for over 13.5 points and assists. Brandon Miller knocking down over 3.5 threes. Lamelo Ball converting for over 38.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Bradley Beal at over 14.5 points. Josh Green, a thorn in the Suns' side from his Mavericks days, getting active defensively at over 1.5 stocks. LaMelo Ball at over 1.5 first quarter assists, because that was a gimme. And then also LaMelo, because of the high volume usage, turning the ball over 3.5 times tonight.
Plus 1,500.
And the money was like a stack and some
Was
change.
that 1,500 or 15,000?
I think 15,000.
It's
Sorry, 15,000.
Yeah.
My bad.
It was a stack and some change. You can add that extra zero.
You were pretty close to hitting your really big one last night. It's my favorite thing to jinx yours mid-game when it's going really well.
Last night, what leg did he miss on?
I missed. It was
it one of the
I think
stocks?
it was KD.
Okay.
Because he got cold at for a stretch, and then there was somebody else missed by like 1.
Okay.
It might have been Tyrese Maxey.
Okay.
For points, rebounds, and assists. Yeah.
Well, it's just awful for you, huh? Let's take a look at my picks. Of course, over on our friends over at Bet365. Little 4-leg parlay for your boy. Ryan Dunn over 11.5 points, rebounds, and assists. LaMelo Ball over 11.5 rebounds and assists. Ryan Dunn over 1.5 stocks, the birthday boy. And Mark Williams over 21.5 points and rebounds. I think the Suns will get out physicaled down low. All of that at a plus 1,200, just measly. Measly plus 1,200 over Stevens plus 52 million. Let's take a look at what Espo's putting it on tonight. Plus 1,100. Mason Plumlee, first basket. It could happen.
I know he's out sick, but the man is still consistent. Look at that.
Yeah.
A first basket bet.
He's always consistent.
And
I
he
wish
said Suns by 1 too, right?
he did say Suns
So
by
very
1.
consistent.
And I am not, because I forgot to pull up the jersey matchup, something that Espo would have absolutely loved to be here. Let's take a look at what the Suns and the Hornets are wearing tonight. I love those Charlotte uniforms. I love this matchup. The deep purple, the light white with the teal. Was this this wasn't the jersey that KD made his debut in, was it? What jersey was he wearing when they played Charlotte?
Oh.
Yeah, it might have been the purple joint.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I'm trying to remember, because I remember that game. Feels like 15 years ago.
It does.
Steven, any other final thoughts on this game? How the Suns could maybe possibly win 2 in a row, if we're lucky?
Well, they can win it by playing some sustained defense. They won the game last night because they dug in defensively and they got active and they got contagious across multiple players and multiple lineups. You don't win this game without playing at least as much, if not more, defense, because this Charlotte team has more firepower outside of just LaMelo when you add Brandon Miller and his ability to light it up from deep. So taking away the three-point line from Brandon Miller, doing a good job of corralling LaMelo Ball and pick and roll. And then the other thing for me on the other side is just finding some consistency with how you're approaching offense. I haven't been the most confident with the way they've approached offense the last couple of games, but second half of last night, they hit a stride. They started pulling some of the strings that they usually do in manipulating the space and matchups. And this is a game that should present them with plenty of opportunities to do that.
Gerald, how do they win tonight?
I think forcing some of the turnovers, like Steven alluded to with his bet for LaMelo Ball, like that would help. The Hornets are 23rd in turnovers and 21st in opponent points off of turnovers. So if the Suns play an engaged level of defense, are getting in passing lanes like they should when you have Ryan Dunn and KD out there in the starting lineup together, you're going to be able to turn some of Charlotte's mistakes into opportunities. The Suns, I think, are top 3 in points per possession in transition as well. So if you can turn those mistakes, live ball turnovers into opportunities on the other end, that opens things up for you offensively, despite the way that they've been approaching things and having to figure lineups out. So that's kind of my big thing. Defend at a high engaged level and take away the 3-point line, but generate some mistakes as well.
Win or loss, we will be here post-game right here on PHNX Sports, the PHNX Suns Show. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button as well. We appreciate a lot of you in here. 412 of you in here right now for some Hornets Suns basketball talk. I need all 412 of you plus 3 of your closest friends. Bring them all back post-game right after the final buzzer right here on PHNX Sports. Of course, we have a Cardinal show going on right now as well. Wildcats, ASU, and of course, we'll be revamping our PHNX Diamondbacks coverage as well. Appreciate all of you being here. Appreciate all of you coming back, and we'll see you in post-game. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.